Section 1.2, and we're starting with algebraic fractions. Now, if you look through section 1.2 and all the way through exercise 1b and 1c, you'll see that what we've got here is GCSE cancelling fractions questions. All right. Now, I'm not going to go through many of the examples here because what I'm trying to do is show you the A-level textbook. What I will do though is I'll say, look, there are loads of videos online that will show you GCSE fractions. If there's any techniques on this section that you're not happy with, then I'd recommend callbitmaths.com. If you particularly want my explanation of this, then look, I'm trying to work through the whole of the A-level books. By all means, leave me a message. It's currently January 2020. When I finally get through filming all of these, I might pick that message up and go back and put this explanation in. But this is GCSE stuff. So I'm not going to go through the techniques, but the advice I will give you is the following. Make sure you are familiar with these techniques. Make sure you know them really well. That's why there's an exercise here. I think probably having started A-level and got this far through it, you can do this stuff. You just, the textbook is saying to you, and I'm saying to you as well, put the practice in, read the blue boxes and practice this. So get your algebraic fractions knowledge going really well so that when you get onto partial fractions, you're ready for them, okay? The other bit of advice I'd give you is factorise the tops, factorise the bottoms. Sometimes you'll find common factors that you can cancel out at the start of the question. Sometimes you do the question and then you factorise the tops and factorise the bottoms and you find common factors at the end. There's no hard and fast rule that you should factorise at the start or factorise at the end. Sometimes one's better than others. Just look for common factors, because if you can find common factors and they will cancel out, it will often make things easier. On the other hand, if you're adding fractions like this, then you need to sort of create common factors on the top and the bottom, don't you, to make your common denominators. So again, you know, there's no hard and fast rules, but watch out for common factors that you can cancel out is always a good idea. Secondly, just think about the way these rules work and make sure when you're doing something in algebraic fractions, you are doing something which works with numbers. Okay, so the example that I see a lot would be, what sort of thing? Well, if you end up with 2 plus 5 over, let's make it 2 plus 5 over 11, then that would be 7/11ths, wouldn't it? And that's fine. But I can't do that as 7/11ths isn't the same as 7/5ths plus 7/6ths, okay? Now, hopefully that's obvious when we think of it as in numbers, right? 7/6 is bigger than 1. I can't have a fraction bigger than 1 and add together another fraction bigger than 1 and get an answer less than 1. So this is obviously not true, and this is sort of obviously true, right? If you get 2/5ths and 5/11ths and you add them together, you get 7/11ths. So that, in numbers, that's obvious. Now, in algebra, you often end up with something like this, x plus y over z. We can write that as x over z plus y over z, and a lot of the time that's a useful thing to do. But if I've got z over x plus y, some people think, oh, well, I can split the fraction up, right? So some people then write it like this. And that is the equivalent of doing this, isn't it? So that is not true. When you're doing something in algebra, try and, until you're really used to algebraic fractions, try and remember what the fact was that you're using from numerical fractions and see if what you're doing actually makes sense, okay? So watch out for that sort of thing. The other bit of advice I give you is this. If you've got fractions, a over b over c over d or something like that, if you've got a fraction on the top and a fraction on the bottom, make your line in the middle really big, so that you can see this fraction here, you can see this fraction here, you can see what you're dividing by what. And if you're not used yet to things like, well, if you've got a half divided by 4, then you can think of that, well, you can think of it as a half divided by 4 over 1, and then do it as a half times a quarter, because you flip the second fraction upside down and times, or you can think of it as a half divided by 4. Well, if you're dividing a fraction, you times the denominator by whatever you're timesing by, right? So you get 1/8. It's those sort of different versions of the shortcuts which might be helpful to you, okay? Now, it may be frustrating to some people, but I'm not going to go through every single example there and all those details, because it is GCSE material, really. but they're in the A-level textbook so that you can make sure you practiced it before you jump into the partial fractions. Again, core bit maths, I'm sure we'll have a good video on it and plenty of practice if you feel like it's worthwhile.